Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Class. Today's Coffee Class, is a little bit different. We are calling this week Pitch Week, and also we're going to talk about breaking into the industry. So it's more of a, the business side of screenwriting rather than the writing side today.
And also getting started, right? I mean, that's kind of excited how.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different story on how they got started, I think.
Yeah, I hope. We'll find out because we haven't told each other our stories yet. So.
I can't believe that you and Avishai haven't heard every story that I've ever.
I have a guess at what your breaking in story is, and I think that your story is really unusual.
I thought you knew my story. Yeah.
I want to whisper to you what I think it is, but I guess I'll find out.
I feel like you have more stories than we could possibly know.
I'm old. I'm so old. I mean, I've accrued more. You stay on the planet long enough, you have a whole shitload of stories.
Oh man! Everyone says hello.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, so anyway, you probably recognize Avishai from his comments, but
Hello.
He's here today. Our horror guy.
The wonderful and talented Avishai.
Yes. Do you want to say who you are?
Who are you? Who are you?
How you know John?
Yeah, so my name's Avishai. I've been lurking in the comments for a bit. I went to NYU and had the privilege of having John as my teacher twice. I had him as a freshman, and then I took his year-long feature course, and the script that I wrote for his class was the first thing that I wrote that actually got anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the nutshell version.
And I had the pleasure of having Avishai in my class twice.
You
which
realize
was a pleasure. It was a blast. He's
the
terrific.
the scripts that did something.
Yeah,
for
what's
both
that
of us,
mean?
Avi. Both of us, Avi, your script and my script were both written in John's class, and then that's the one that we used to make things move, right?
I mean,
wow.
I just realized that.
It's not surprising because
it's John.
Because it's John, but also because John's class is so structure oriented, and the way it works is that we present large chunks of the script every few weeks and get notes as we write it. And the script that I wrote in John's class, the first 30 pages I presented, John's note in the room was, okay, I think that this might be missing something. I think the goal might not be strong enough, but keep going, just keep writing, see what happens. And that weekend, he emailed me to say, actually, I take it back. You need to rework your goal. And I had to completely.
I don't remember any of this.
I had to completely rethink the goal and pitch it to you and explain why it's a strong goal. And then once you approved of that, it kept going, and it just sort of reoriented the structure of the script from.
I hope it helped. I'm terrified that I did that.
But the script went somewhere, It got me into some pretty cool rooms. So I owe that to you. I mean, it would be I'm trying to imagine a world in which I had my sort of wishy-washy goal and the script gets places. And maybe it would have, who knows, but I don't know.
That would be the darkest timeline, a timeline without John Warren as our advanced teacher.
I'm very flattered. And by the way, I mean, you guys were super. You guys, let's face it, in both those classes, they were in different years. You guys were stars. So, it worked. It worked for all of us, I think.
Let's see.
And
Avi,
we had fun.
You had a interesting comment. I didn't know if you knew this. Did you know that this happened, Avi? Avishai talk. I heard his name dropped in the Screenwriters Network podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to guess which episode it was because I know I was name dropped once. I'm hoping this is the right podcast that I'm keeping my head. Apologies if it's not.
Are you doing too many podcasts?
No, I just I'm trying to remember if that's the name of the podcast. It's been a while, but I co-wrote a short horror script with my sister Tova, and we submitted it to this contest, and we were semifinalists with it. So they on the podcast they talked about just a number of short horror scripts. Yes, the killer shorts. Thank you, Gideon. So the hosts were talking about just the summaries of a bunch of the shorts, and so ours came up.
There you go. And Avi, you're seeing all the welcomes to you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I'm excited to be
on.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy. That's so nice. That's great.
Oh man.
Hey, it's
So
fun to be here.
I think that Avi, you and I are both actually pitching those scripts today, right? Is that the one?
I
From
was
John's?
thinking of actually pitching the one I wrote prior,
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
because
Cool.
I'm hoping that the one I wrote for John might still go somewhere.
Right.
Things have happened with it.
It's gone in and out of rooms. It's had a life. It's not attached to anybody, but it's had a life. So I'm hoping that life continues. But I wrote a script. Joy Jade, am I pronouncing that right?
Mhm.
Yes, that is a dog. Okay, so I wrote a script a year before I wrote the script I wrote for John, and I'm considering lately like dusting it off, but I know it's probably not up to standard just in terms of craft. So I thought I might as well pitch that one.
There we go. Maybe someone will inspire you with some questions to help you
Yeah.
help
Maybe.
you get it going.
And then later, Alexie, I think then when we come back after the pitches, because Avishai, both you and Alexie referred a couple times to things happened with these scripts. So I think people are going to be, we're all eager to hear what happened. So we'll come back around to that, right?
Yeah. And Monica asks if we get to see copies of the scripts you pitched. I'm down. I don't care. Avi, we can talk about it, Avi, and figure it out. But
yeah, I'm gonna hesitate for now because I don't think that as a script it's the best thing I've written, and I'm gonna clean it up a bit. But I got other things.
Great. Okay.
So we'll get on that. Okay. So without further ado, Avi, do you want to do the pitch?
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
So here is my quasi-impromptu pitch for Olivia's War, which I wrote a few years back. It is a sci-fi action horror medley. It's very violent. So it's about it's can't full screen now. Okay, so it's about a young college student named Olivia who she's an activist. She's very idealistic. She's been out in the field trying to make the world a better place, and lately she's been having a bit of a crisis of faith because she's seen that things are kind of getting worse in the world and the activism isn't working. And more personally for her, her best friend Samantha has an illness which has just been revealed to be terminal, and there's nothing that Olivia can do to help Samantha, and she's feeling kind of helpless, and it's sort of dampening her idealism. And how could you save the world if you can't even save your best friend? So one evening, Olivia is in Samantha's dorm room, at the top of a dorm building, like 12th floor, and all the windows go black. The power goes to an alternate power source, the alternate generators, and these two vicious monsters just appear in the lobby and just start killing their way up the building. It's pandemonium. A lot of people are murdered. Samantha is killed. Olivia runs. She gets to the revolving door in the lobby, goes through it, and when she comes out the other side, she's right back in the same lobby 15 minutes before the monsters showed up. And very quickly learns that every time she goes through that revolving door, she's right back in that lobby 15 minutes before the monsters show up. And that what happens in that building now, like if there's a younger version of herself upstairs, a 15 minutes younger version of herself upstairs, anything that happens to her doesn't affect her. So if that younger version dies, our Olivia's fine. But it also means that there's a younger Samantha upstairs. And Olivia realizes that there's an opportunity here to save a version of Samantha. And she doesn't quite know how yet, but at the very least, she can get her through those revolving doors and get her a 15-minute reprieve. So she tries to do that, and using the knowledge of what happens, she tries to circumvent it. Problem is, unlike other Groundhog Day type stories where you can just sort of refresh your day and be completely back to zero, here the world refreshes every time she goes through that door, but she doesn't. If she gets a scratch, she keeps that scratch. If she gets injured, she stays injured. If she gets hungry, she's going to have to find some food. If she gets older, and then the world around her refreshes every time she goes through that door. It's an alternate, identical version every single time, and it starts to wear her down. And she's just trying and failing to save Samantha as it's wearing her down more and more and more. And it's reaching a point where it might not be possible for her to succeed without destroying herself. And she starts to lose faith in her ability to save Samantha, and maybe even in her ability to keep herself alive. And at her lowest point, that's when she is sort of given the ability to realize how she can get out of here, but it will require some sacrifices on her part. So that's the impromptu pitch for Olivia's War.
Wow.
Hey.
Cool.
There we
Avi,
go.
There we go.
Really cool. I mean,
It's getting comfy, sorry.
Great.
I love the way
world.
you built the world and the way that I know that Adam talked about this before. Oh, sorry, I cut you off completely, John.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Go, please.
I was just excited.
No, go.
The other day, Adam and I were talking about world building, and he brought up the point that what's almost more interesting in a world, people tend to focus on what you can do in a world, you know, like can you fly? Can you do this? But the thing that makes a story more interesting is what can't you do? Like, what are the limitations? And I think that you really set up an awesome world filled with conflict in the contradiction that she keeps her injuries. She's not refreshing, but everything around her is. And that's just there's conflict baked into that setup. And it's so smart.
Thanks. I should have interjected. So, okay, kind of backtracking a tiny bit. I was at a great pitching event a while ago where the setup was they had some producers and managers and whatnot sitting in chairs, and in front of everybody you pitch something in 3 minutes or less, and then you don't leave. You stay right there, but they pretend you've left, and they talk about you as if they're talking behind your back.
Great idea.
No.
Anyway,
no.
So it's terrible, but it's great. But one of the things that they told us to do, which I actually kind of forgot to do here in a pitch, is to kind of talk about sort of a personal element, like why are you telling the story as opposed to why do you like the concept. And so I guess with this one, I would say when I first wrote it, I had lost my uncle to cancer, and I was feeling like nothing that I could have done could help, and just feeling helpless about that because it was a slow motion thing. And especially kind of since then, seeing state of the world kind of decline. And I was thinking about how do you maintain that drive to keep fighting, to keep trying to fix things, when not only does it not put a dent in the world, but it just puts a dent in you. And so I wanted to tell a story about somebody who has to deal with that in the most visceral way.
That's great.
Wow, that's a great note, you know, that personalized, because suddenly we have intimacy. You know, we connect to you, the storyteller. Now we're emotionally moved and involved with you.
That must be why. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's all I was going to say. I think that's really a smart way. Would you tell that but prior to telling the pitch or after?
I guess it depends, because the whole purpose of bringing that up is so that when you pitch to a producer or, you know, a development exec or somebody, you're making the case of why it should be you telling the story and why they should care. So in this case, I feel like I would probably tell it afterwards. But there are situations where I would pitch something and lead with that. I don't want to pitch it live right here, but John, you read my horror script about abusive relationships. I think with that, I would start off with the why of it before getting into the specifics of the plot.
Mm-hmm.
See, I would go the other way. I mean, I would open with, because now you've got me. Now you've touched me. And now I want to hear. Because remember, these guys, development executives, studios, that's what they do all day. They listen to pitches one after another. But if you say, by the way, here's a personalized beat, which is a little bit rare to do, then they're leaning forward. Then they're committed. I remember an agent said to me one time that the pitch should be 75% sold before you go into the room. So I said, what does that mean? And he said, first of all, they have to have read your material. So they're in love with you. If they're not in love with you, we got a problem. But if they're dying for you to see because they love your writing, then, and he said, and then my job is to really pump them up. He said, so then when you walk in, they should have, their credit cards out ready to buy. And I think, and this would, if I were a studio executive, I'm going to ramble on for just a second. So God knows I do. But the other thing is, and this is something for all writers, and I think this is important. I don't know when I learned it, but I learned it somewhere early on. And that's think from the other side of the desk. So what does that mean? Avi, you come in, you're going to pitch that story. You know what you want. You want to sell it. That's clean and clear. But if you can think from the other side of the desk, what do they want? Then that pushes you a little bit closer towards selling, because your part of it's obvious. You want to sell the pitch. But if you're and so sometimes if you're in a studio, they're looking for the big killer tentpole movie. If you're going to an independent company, they're looking for something that they can make within a budget. So if you pitch a $100 million movie to an independent company, they can't buy that anyway. If you're thinking about from the other side of the desk, they're looking at you like, how can I get this schmo out of the room? So think from the other side of the desk. But anyway, can I go back to the story just for a second?
Sure.
So yeah. Olivia wants, does she have to, in order to save Sam, does she have to get back upstairs?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sure you've already thought about this. Is it one monster? Who's keeping her from getting upstairs?
Well, so the ultimate thing is the two monsters, but also there is the very paranoid security guard. There's an elevator situation. It's been a while since I read the draft, but I put thought into how many obstacles could I put between her and upstairs, and then between upstairs and downstairs, aside from the monsters.
Yeah, so it's
I think I had somebody in a wheelchair is being pushed in the elevator, and it's there's a logistical thing, and the other one I think was broken. Like I had things like that, and then the things that come up with her, like she just came through the door, but she's bleeding and needs to tie off something. She's dehydrated. She needs water. She needs some sort of painkiller, and she has to do all that in that period of time and find it in the building.
Yeah. That's great. And is it 3 stories or 5 stories or 7 stories?
I had it at 12 stories because I just based it on my dorm building. I based it on the Weinstein building at NYU. So
okay, so that works. I have one other, and God, Alexie and Avi, you're probably cringing because they remember me doing this, but I'll just say one other thing. Had you ever considered making Sam Olivia's sister?
I did. I went in the direction of making her her crush.
Her crush.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I didn't get that part. I didn't know that she was the crush. But the only reason I would even suggest sister is just up the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a sister, if it's a mom, if you go stakes. So, but it's a great idea.
Thank you. And
great world.
I appreciate that, and I should just kind of get back to the pitching aspect of the pitch. Back at that terrifying sit in front of a panel and hear them talk about you thing. One of the things that they told us to do was, have the theme, have the reason why they should, why you care about it, because they know that you want to sell something, but they want to know that you're not just trying to convince them that what you have is in right now, or it's trendy, or it's the kind of thing that you think that they make. It's like, but why do you need to tell the story? Just to kind of set you apart. They also say start with genre, because they want to know going in what to expect, and then you can subvert that expectation, but they do need to expect something. And if you think it might be a sort of a stranger thing that doesn't fit neatly into something, give a comp, like 2 movies that it might be similar to that they would have heard of that have made money. That's crucial.
I made that mistake. Choosing ones that I liked that did not make money.
I've done that too.
Anyway, sorry, Avi.
Did they recommend saying, for instance, Olivia is like an Emma Stone or a?
So it's interesting because I went to this thing a few times and there was always different people. One of the things that one of the people said was, you don't necessarily want to throw in casting, because what if you say, oh, I think she's an Emma Stone type, and the producer behind the desk is thinking, right, I hate her. I would never work with her. And now they're just picturing this person that they hate. And then you have, and a bit of advice I was given was, definitely don't say, I see him as like a Tom Cruise or an Ian McShane. You know, like they like if you're gonna give a type, don't give completely different.
Yeah. Because then who is that? I can't even imagine that person. Yeah.
Right.
Man.
Yep.
Yeah, when I did a very brief internship at APA in like their motion picture literary department. So we would just read books and then talk to the agent, Lucy Stilla, about who you know, John. Don't you know Lucy? Yeah. We would just basically pitch her the book and whether we thought that they should consider making it into a movie or not. And that was the entire internship. So it was a lot of fun. And you just pitched over and over. And at the end, she told the other kid that I was with, you could be you could work here. You could be an agent. And she looked at me and she said, I can tell you're a writer.
I think that's a compliment.
Is it?
I mean, Lucy's pretty, and Lucy is tough. She's a classic agent. She is tough as nails. But I think that's a compliment. And also, what great practice.
It was good.
It's great practice.
She always wanted actors. Every single time she wanted actors, which I haven't encountered that since, but every time. And specifically, she wanted actors that she had a relationship with. So that might be like sneaky, but like if you happen to know that they have a relationship with whoever. Lucy was really tight with Shailene Woodley at the time, and Sandra Bullock. What's her name?
Sandra Bullock, yeah. She
called her Sandy. She's like, would this be a good role for Sandy? Maybe.
Right. And by the way, if you're pitching to somebody and they say, "Oh, we know Sandra Bullock, do you think this would be good for her?" You say yes.
Yeah,
exactly. Right away.
Oh man.
Avi, I think it's an interesting idea. Have you given any thought to what you might be doing with it?
Yeah. So basically, I have.
You didn't sit on your dog, did you?
No, just one of my family members just opened my door and just left it wide open. So it's like, want to close it. Okay. So basically, I have 4 feature scripts that I feel are sort of up to the standard I want them to be to show the world, starting from the one I wrote for you, John. And this was the one I wrote right before it. And it did have a moment where it was optioned, but I don't think that the draft that it is right now is up to the standard that it could be. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, I just finished a script that's sort of out in the world, and it would be kind of nice to go back and clean up something older and maybe look at it with fresh eyes, 5 years later and say like, oh, okay, so here's how I would do it now. And I was thinking, instead of necessarily doing big structural changes, I might just go granular, because I've had more life experience since then. I probably can just improve the characters.
Mm.
Yeah, that's going cool. Back and look at an old material. I mean, by the way, sometimes it's a little shocking. I say from my own experience and going, oh my God, this actually went out. But
the script I wrote for you, I was in a position to show it to somebody recently, and I thought, well, right before I sent it out, let me read through it again. And I did a pass because, like, I realized, like, oh, okay, I would write a little differently now. I wouldn't use this word. This line doesn't work. I'll change it. It's all the kind of things that at the time I didn't notice. And you have something now, and it's like,
that's the craft. Yeah, I mean, you keep getting better and better and better.
And you don't necessarily realize it, and you look back, it's like, oh, okay, I don't know how I am now, but I wasn't as good then.
But that was a strong script.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you asked to see internet, John, and then I guess it got passed to you, Avi. I sent you At first, I sent you the version that I wrote in class, and then later on, I was like, maybe I should take a look at this. And I found so many typos. I found so many just like things where I'm like describing feelings. Like, and so I finally retyped the entire script, and because I didn't have the final draft document anymore.
Oh, really?
I was like, I can't stand this.
Oh my God, you retyped the whole script.
But I like retyping things because then you don't write stupid things twice. That's
true. That's true.
Skip the unnecessary
Well,
words.
are you gonna pitch internet?
I am.
Okay.
I am gonna pitch internet. Yeah. I guess I'll do a pitch like Avi, so something I wanted to talk about briefly before though is that like I feel like there's different kinds of pitches. Like there's a pitch like what Avi did, which is the hook. It's like now you want to know more, now you want to read it. And then I've had to do pitches before where you're pitching on an idea that a producer has. Mm-hmm. And when you pitch, you literally go through they want to know everything. They want to know how you're going to end it. They want to know the midpoint. They want to know all this stuff. And those pitches are really long. I think that, John, you were talking about how you want it to be like no more than, what is it?
15 minutes.
15?
Yeah, 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, 15 is long.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in that instance where they've already got material and you're already kind of working with them, then you might go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
John, you have us do both kind of pitches for your class.
I have what?
You have us do both kind of pitches for your class. Where first, like, give us, through the hook, and then give us the 10 to 15 minute version.
Yeah, because as you begin to build it, you find. I mean, I think you find more. It gets richer and deeper, and you find nuance, and so it starts to come to life. I mean, that's one of the kind of mystical, charming things about writing is that it starts with this little idea and grows and grows and becomes something sometimes quite different. But I mean, Alexie, I still remember when you pitched internet, and I was trying. We had students in the room, and I didn't want to tell everybody else they should go home, but
oh my God. But
I thought the other one of the fun things that happens, and it happened with Alexie's script, is that you're students, and so and sometimes students pitch stories, and I'm sitting there, and I've heard I've pitched a lot of stories, and I've heard hundreds. And so it's really quite interesting when a student is pitching a story and you're sitting there and you're thinking, you have no idea how good this is.
Yeah. And
so you can't say it because, again, you don't want to alienate. I mean, you don't want to scare everybody else in the room. Although I think, when Alexie internet, it was pretty much everybody knew it was a home run.
I wasn't even going to pitch it.
Really?
No, I wasn't. The first week we had to come in with ideas, and I came in with something about a freaking coal miner, and it was going to be like Winter's Bone, and everyone just kind of stared at me. And then I prepared a pitch for that, and then I texted my friend from like the sports team I was on, and I was like, "What? I have this idea that I've developed a lot, but then I'm also thinking about this." And she's like, "That one's much better. Do that one." So then I sat down in class, and I was completely unprepared. And
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's always funny when you have no idea that the thing you're pitching is something that people like.
Yeah.
And sometimes it really just takes someone to tell you, by the way, what you just told us that's actually good, for you to realize, maybe it is.
I know. I thrive on the approval of others. Like,
I think we all do, don't we all? And that's universal.
Oh man. Yeah.
So,
and then I guess I'll do it. Someone's asking if I can give a full pitch. I'll pitch what I can, and we'll see how much I remember. All right. Okay. So the script is very cleverly called Internet, and it is an animated feature, and it takes place inside of a 2008 desktop computer. I'm actually going to close this window so I don't see chat, just so I'm. It's hard. Yeah, it takes place inside of a 2008 desktop computer, and our main character is Mac. And Mac is 12 years old. He's a digital boy who lives inside this computer. You know, like those old Windows backgrounds with like the rolling hills and like the skyscape in the background. That's where his little town is. And Mac is just, you know, an average kid. His mom is a spell checker for Microsoft Word. He likes to get into trouble constantly, and he and his friends are just always, you know, he has a little slingshot. He likes to shoot stuff places. But something that nobody knows about Mac is that he has the ability to break code. So if he's able to sort of, you know, have something in his hands and turn it into ones and zeros and change something about it, which is, you know, he hasn't told anybody the secret. But so when the story begins, Mac and his 3 little friends decide that they're going to break into iTunes and they're going to steal some gift code cards and, you know, get better music than their LimeWire crap. So they break in to iTunes, and immediately he goes too far. He goes to the discount codes. He tries to break it to get in when no one's looking. He sets off all the alarms at iTunes. All these guards from on, like the security on the desktop, come chasing him out, and he gets caught. So now Mac is caught, and he has to go talk to, you know, the person in charge of the desktop, who is Mayor Clip, you know, a little paper clip. He's the mayor, and he lives in this big tower made of windows, and Mac has to go visit him. And, you know, Mac's mom shows up. They're not happy. And Mayor Clip seems to be sort of a, you know, he's a bubbly guy. He decides to let Mac off. He just has to do an internship at the email department. And he's bummed because that's, you know, he'd rather be running around shooting things with a slingshot. But he goes and he takes this job at the internship at email. And his job is basically just to see things coming in. There's a shoot from the internet, and things come into the desktop, and it's his job to just sort them and throw out the spam. And the one thing that his little boss tells him is don't open any attachments. So naturally, the moment the guy walks out of the room, this crazy box comes through that's like, you know, shaking and doing weird things. And he decides he's just going to take a peek inside. He's not going to open it. So he tries to break it using his special skills. And the whole thing explodes. And it was a virus. Some of this virus gets on his arm, and he's freaking out. And he's trying to get out of the room. And he ends up getting sucked into the portal that goes to the internet. So now Mac has shot into the internet, and he like lands in, I pictured in my head, so it's hard to describe it without, yeah, anyway. So he gets shot into the internet, and he lands on the ground, and he has all this virus on him. And as soon as he's out the door, Norton, the leader of like security, is chasing him and shooting at him. And he runs into this girl named Tori, who also just is there. And she is running from the security guys too, from Norton. And he follows her into like a hideout. And he's freaking out. He's never been on the internet. She's some internet kid. And she's already fed up with him. So when he shows her his arm, she freaks out. She's like, you got to get out of here. Like, do not touch that. Like, go. You're going to ruin everything. And while he's sitting there just feeling sorry for himself, he decides to try to break it to see if he can get rid of it. And instead, it makes everything worse. It makes it spread faster, and it's going up his arm. And Tori saw that, and she's immediately changes her tune. She's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna help. Like, why don't we go take you to my boss, and we'll see what we can do. And by the way, if this was the short pitch, I would have ended with right about now, where now his objective is he needs to find the cure for this virus. That he has this virus that's going up his arm. Tori tells him it's just going to keep spreading until he's dead, and he needs to find the cure within the internet. Should I do the full pitch, or should I just?
So where are you? So that now we've got the protagonist and the objective. We've got a mentor, I'm assuming, and just tell us a little bit about where they launched to from there, please.
Yeah. So basically, she's showing him how to be like a petty criminal of the internet, and they break into a hyperlink train, and then they jump off halfway, and they go into Pirate Bay. She's a torrenter, Tori, and she's a pirate. She helps torrent music and stuff like that. Basically, the kind of music he was listening to in the beginning. She torrents all this music and like transports it around, and it's this whole shady thing. And she takes him to her boss, who's like a huge fancy pirate named Captain Two Gigs, because that's all that's left of him after after the virus got him. So he's like mostly machine. He's not even like, digital human anymore. And he tells her, you need to find, or he tells Mac that he could just cut off his arm like what all the pirates do, like what he did, like he's like mostly, machine. He needs to find Mr. Chan. And so then from there, it's Mac and Tori going to try to find Mr. Chan, whoever that is, and so that they can get the cure. And the midpoint, just to, I guess, jump around, is they find out that there is no Mr. Chan. It was a reference to 4chan. And there was nothing, and there's an issue happening on the desktop. He gets a letter from his mom, like an email from his mom that has typos in it. And she's a spell checker. She wouldn't do that. And he goes back to find that the virus has spread everywhere in his desktop. And yeah, I can reveal the end, I guess, instead of pitching up to it. But basically, it turns out that his 2008 computer needed an update. And the update was going to erase Mayor Clip. The paper clip was going to be gone. And so he orchestrated this plot to infect the desktop so much that it couldn't update. And so he actually had hired Tori to throw the package, the mail, the virus into the computer. And that's why she was there when Mac immediately jumped out. That's why she was right there. She'd just thrown the virus in. And so Mac has to use his breaking abilities, which is, it turns out that Tori wanted to help him because that's like the superhero of this world, are people who can break things, and it's really rare. Now I feel like I'm just rambling, but that's the story.
Yeah, it's a great story. Thank you.
And it's a good script.
It's a fantastic script. Yeah. No, it's a great. Also, it's both you and Avishai. I'm still wildly impressed that the worlds that you created are so unique. And world building is difficult. It's demanding. And these worlds, I understand these worlds immediately. I get what they are, where we are. I want to know more about them.
Oh wait, I didn't bring you all back. That's why I've been feeling so uncomfortable. I was like, what's so weird? Okay, go ahead.
So anyway, I love it. And the script is fantastic. The script is absolutely fantastic.
It got punched in the face by Wreck-It Ralph 2 Breaks the Internet. In case anyone was wondering.
They should have hired you onto it.
Yeah.
When my now manager was sending it out to try to get feedback, we kept getting like this like weird answer that was oddly consistent, which was like, we like it. We want to see what else she has, which at the time I didn't have anything else, which is why you have multiple things. But anyway, we want to see what else she has, but there's something in development now that is too similar.
And that was Wreck-It Ralph.
And that was 4 years later, Wreck-It Ralph.
Well, but Alexie, so if I remember correctly, we sent this out. Talk about what the script did. Again, the script is really fantastic. It's really well written. You read it, you know this is a writer who has talent. And what happened? Where did this take you?
Yeah, so I entered this one into a contest at NYU actually, and it won the contest, and the prize for getting, I guess, for winning it was that it was going to get sent out to a bunch of different managers, and so I had two different people contact me. One wanted to be more like an agent, one wanted to be more like a manager, and so I ended up talking to both of them about like their feedback on the script. One of them was like, "Can you make it funnier?" And I'm like, "This is as funny as I get. Like I can't, no, I can't make it funnier." But he liked it and wanted to know, like wanted to see my next thing, was sort of his vibe. And then my current manager, whose name is Adam, not our Adam, different Adam. He read the script, he liked it, he sent it out to some people, got that feedback about like, you know, something's in development, but
Oh, you froze.
Alexie, you still there?
Lexi froze. Oh, you froze for a second.
Okay.
You froze for, yeah.
I was saying that basically my future manager had like a shopping agreement where he was trying to go around and present it to people, and if it sold, he would try to get himself attached as producer, and you don't get paid for a shopping agreement. So we did that, and then the next year I wrote another script. The one I wrote I did an independent study with John and one other student, and I wrote this one about a girl traveling through dimensions. And
Great script.
What?
And a great world too. That's an amazing world. Yeah.
I get screwed though because I make these $200 million worlds, and then then people like it and they want to talk, but no, it's not going to get made. At least not until I'm further in my career.
But you're getting attention. You've got a manager. People are starting to hire. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good to have this on the back burner, just so that when that time comes, you have it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one did well. I mean, that basically my manager took me on when I sent him the first draft of the Dimension script. He'd read the internet one, liked it, but thought that he wanted to see something else before he signed on. I sent him the first draft, and he sent me back a contract. And then we've been working together since.
Yeah.
And people keep asking about contests, and that's why I think enter contests as long as you know that the prize is good and it doesn't cost too much, and that you get to keep the rights to your script. I took the Dimensions one. I sent it into Austin, and it was a semi-finalist, and I got some emails from people. So if I hadn't been represented, that could have been another chance to have that happen. So I like contests.
And Avi, you kill on contests.
Oh,
yeah,
lately.
he does.
Yeah. I mean, you're like the king of contests.
It really depends, because everything that I write is genre. So I send to these very specific genre contests that are looking for the kind of stuff that I'm writing. So it's a very specific field, but yeah, I've been getting some awards lately.
What should I mean, you've got a number of, right?
Yeah. So the script that I wrote 3 scripts ago. One, I'm actually staring at it right now because it's on my wall.
Hey, look at that!
Look at that!
Shiny.
Drift off.
Yeah, so that was the first award I won. Before that, I'd been finalist in a bunch of things, semi-finalist in a bunch of things, but that was the first where I'm like, okay, second place winner, cool. The script I wrote after that won 3rd place at a horror festival, and then first place at a couple of others. So and that's still doing the festival round. So maybe more will come in, but in the meantime, like it was just like, oh, that's actually really fun to suddenly get just award. It's like, okay, I guess they like this one. And it was funny because it was my most controversial script kind of outside of contests. Because it deals with really touchy subject material, and there are people who read it like, oh, I don't know if this is something that should be in the world right now. And then I guess horror people looked at it and said, oh no, actually this is our jam. So I have some awards from that.
You also, and the spinoff of that is that you have more and more relationships with producers and agents, and I mean that so it has really permeated the world, the movie world for you in terms of relationships. Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like with every like break in, I kind of feel like it's almost sort of starting from a new position. But
a step up, don't you think?
Yeah, but it's sort of like an award doesn't necessarily lead directly to something, but it leads sort of adjacently to things. So like at these festivals, they're in-person festivals, and so you get to meet a whole lot of people who are doing the same thing that you are.
Right.
And they're writing like you are, or they're directing, they have short film playing, they have a feature, and you make friends through that. Great piece of advice that I was given a few years ago that has always stuck with me is don't network, make friends. Because everybody obviously in the screenwriting world wants to advance and wants to sell something, wants to make something. Like that's like it's clear, and everybody kind of sees like, oh, you're a producer, you can make this happen. Like that's that's the thing that everybody wants, and it's not really fun to be on either side of that. It's not really fun to be the person who's desperate for that. It's not really fun to be the person on the receiving end of that. But if you can make friends, if there's people who are in the same boat as you, who are interested in the same things as you, you're going to sort of be like just in the same boat for a while, and you're going to be running in parallel with each other. And at best, maybe like a professional thing will come out of it, and at least you're going to have friends.
That's right, and yeah.
That's like also. Oh, I was gonna say that's also something. I think I did tell this story already. Just like the short version of it is that when I first started going to those meetings, like writer meetings, I approached it like a job interview and completely blew it. And then my manager called me up and was like, I'm gonna send you a book on body language. I was like, ah! And then he said, which would have been nice to know in the beginning, like your job isn't to like you're not trying to get a job, you're trying to convince them that they could stand being in a room with you for like hours. You just want them to like you. You should try to be their friend. Like, don't steer them back to your story every 2 seconds. If they just want to small talk, let them. Just like be friends with them and like let it, and every meeting has gone well since.
Yeah, that's a great note. I mean, I don't know how, but somehow I stumbled into it early in my career that I realized that it was a marriage. That that when you're in that room and that executive is looking at you or the producer's looking at you, they're saying, "Is this somebody that I can be in that I want to talk to or see every week? Do I want a relationship?" And by the way, you'll find out when get way down the road with your careers, some of these people, I mean, I have people in the business I've known for 40 years. I mean, we go back to when we were starting out, when I was saying, I got a script, can you get it? Can you slip it to an agent? And I'm still in touch with that guy. I'm in touch with the guy who bought something at Warner Brothers, who's no longer a studio executive, but he's a manager producer. So cultivating and establishing a rapport that says, okay, I can hang out with you, I can talk to you. I'm not saying you have to bend over backward, but I'm saying that's a great note that they're looking at you to say, this is somebody I know I can who will listen to me, I can listen to them, we can connect, because you're going to be, sometimes a movie, sometimes you're with that person for a year. And and if you, not that anybody would do that, but if you unwittingly repulse them,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a good thing.
No.
Something to add. I think that there's sort of like a myth kind of outside the screenwriting world that screenwriters are all kind of trying to snipe at each other and trying to kind of get each other the opportunities. If you're trying to get your own opportunities and you're trying to prevent somebody else from getting one, and it's sort of like a race like that or competition. And it's really important to know that it's the opposite. Like, be a friend, but also help other people in the industry and the business in ways that don't necessarily come back to you. If there is an opportunity for somebody and you think that they have a great script and you see somebody out there is looking for that kind of script, make that connection, introduce people, a rising tide raises all ships. And it's important to go with that mentality. And every so often you meet somebody who's like, well, I don't want to give up an opportunity that I might get. And you can always kind of tell that that's sort of like a red flag. Another red flag is, oh, they'll all steal my idea.
Yeah.
Which is a very specific form of paranoid narcissism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember when you told us that, John. You were like, nobody wants to take your script. Nobody wants it.
I mean, there's this, particularly, and I was the same way, but particularly, when you're starting out, you've got this idea and you're thinking, oh my God, this is the greatest idea of all time. And everybody's going to try to steal it from it. First of all, not only have to steal it, they have to execute it. So I had a guy one time, and I'm telling you, he wasn't very nice. And Avi's note is very good, is to be helpful. By the way, nobody understands what you're going through as well as another writer. And my closest friends are writers, because we could cry on each other's shoulders and laugh about that and laugh about this. And we understood because we were living in the same world. But one time I do remember pitching to this guy, telling this guy, I got this thing, and then we were having lunch, and needless to say, this is the last time we ever had lunch. He said, I may steal that. And I said, well, that's fine, because I know you can't execute it. I mean, fuck off, man. You can't write. I could give you Gone with the Wind, you'd shit on it. So, so I just kind of love that. I remember the guy. I can see the guy right now. But Avi, it's a great point, because, and also David, you heard me talk about David, one of my all-time closest friends. David was a guy that I could say, David, can you look at my script? And David's so much smarter than I am that his notes, I'd go, oh my God, of course. And he and I always shared scripts. I'd look at his, he'd look at mine. I don't know why he was giving me his scripts, because I was like the guy who couldn't execute. But David's notes were just so amazing. So that that camaraderie relationship, and writers are great. I love writers. Writers are great.
We're great.
Yeah, we're great.
We're great.
Yeah.
It's something that you do run into every so often, of not even just the idea, but I wrote a script, but I'm paranoid that they're gonna steal it. And even if it's completed, it is a giveaway that person is probably not somebody that you want to be dealing with, because it's narcissistic in the sense that I wrote a great script that everybody in the world is going to want to make, and paranoid in the sense of, but the only way that they're going to make it is if they steal it from me. They're out to get me. They don't want to buy it. And any given studio would rather just buy the thing and own it than have to worry about the sort of Damocles of a lawsuit down the line.
Yeah.
But every so often you have a writer who's maybe hit off with them as a you just think that they're a fun person, and they have a script that sounds kind of cool, and then you're like, I know somebody who might be looking for something like that. Can I send this to them? She's like, okay, but I want them to sign an NDA. And then you're like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Move on.
With this, but
yeah.
Oh, man.
Anyway, but your stories are great, and your pitches are great. You're strong. And by the way, there's one theme that has come up with both of you that I think we should acknowledge. Both of you kept writing.
Yeah.
My
true.
third script, my second script, my third, my fourth script, you both kept writing. That's, by the way, I never met a successful writer who stopped writing.
I've heard, and then Richie Jackson told me the opposite. I've never known a writer who never stopped writing and didn't eventually get something to go. You know, like if you're just constantly creating, then.
And your craft, it's what Avi was saying, but going back to an old script, your craft gets better and better and better, and your analytical skills about how to approach a story get better and better and better, and you just become a better writer. But if you stop, you know, if they didn't buy, if they're so stupid that they didn't buy your first script, so that's it. I'm not going to write another. And you kiss them off. Guess what? They're happy to be kissed off. You got to keep writing. Keep writing. It's a process.
Do we have questions? Someone's asking about registering with the WGA, and I wanted to address that because it's something that keeps coming up. Basically, John, please jump in if I'm wrong. Well, first, my friend's an entertainment lawyer, and she's going to record a little video for us explaining.
Oh, great.
Yeah, she's going to explain like what you need to do to actually like to reasonably protect your script, you know, and like why. So we'll have that soon. But the gist is that, you know, in the US and most countries, I think, you get an automatic copyright when you create something. Not when you create an idea, but when you write your script, you automatically own the copyright to that script.
Right.
If someone takes your script, say someone literally takes your script and shoots it without telling you, and like they're going to try to take your script, you can only take them to court if you have the official copyright. Like if you filed for the copyright. But you can do that after they've infringed on your script. So if, say I had the automatic copyright, I didn't do anything to protect it, they take the script, they're making it, I find out, then I go and I register with the US Copyright Office so that I can sue them. That's okay. You can do it in that order. The thing becomes about proving when you wrote it. And that's really where the WGA comes in, is like it's an official place where you can say, this is when I wrote it, you know, and it's super easy, which is why I recommend doing that over the US Copyright Office.
Yeah.
It's easier and it's cheaper. The West is easier and cheaper than the East. So I always use the West.
Right. And they give you a number that's on file, and they say your script is number such and such, and then you've got that document, and you call them. Yeah. So registering with WGA West. What?
A small side note about that, about the WGA number. I see a lot of new writers put the WGA number on the title.
I knew you were going that way. Don't do it.
Don't do it. It doesn't really.
It's a rookie move.
It makes you look like a rookie. Anyway,
just
say that while we were on the topic.
So if they put the number, the WGA number on the cover page, it's first time writer.
Yeah. Have your email. Don't have your WGA number.
Yep. Yeah. Email. Email's good to have on there though.
Yeah.
And then
let them, they can find you. Yeah.
And then to elaborate a little bit more, I contacted my entertainment lawyer about this and was asking about, you know, the modern poor man's copyright, which was, John, you told us about that, which is like when you mail it to yourself and then you keep it because then it's been stamped with the date by the post office. You know, can you email a script to yourself and save it, and then it's time stamped? You know, you can't change that. So you'd have it time stamped as long as you kept that email. So I asked my lawyer, like, is that legitimate? Like, could you use that? And he was just sort of like, it's just about proving when you wrote it. So
maybe it is. Yeah, I've never heard of that before. It makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but a lot of times the registration with the WGA and stuff like that is required of contests and people who are going to read your script officially for feedback. Like, we ask that you do it. And part of that, frankly, is to protect
themselves.
Us. Yeah. Because we're all working in the industry, And if we happen to be producing something that happens to be similar, then it could cause some issues. But yeah.
And by the way, even if John's friend said, I'm going to steal that idea, and then actually went off and wrote that script and was successful and somehow managed to get it made, there isn't much that John could do legally, because you can't copyright an idea, only the unique expression of an idea.
That's right.
So it's this weird mix of, don't worry, nobody does this, and also if they do this, there's not all that much you can do about it anyway.
Yeah. And also, like, something else to remember, which it kind of circles back to when Avi was talking about helping other writers. No other writer is going to have your voice and your sensibility. So what you bring to a script anyway is going to be completely different than what someone else brings.
That's right.
And so their approach is not going to be your approach.
Yeah, your tone and your voice are yours. And again, my buddy David, if I had an idea I was going to pitch, if I was going out with a pitch, I'd pitch it to David. I mean, I trusted him, he's my best friend. But yes, Alexie hit it right on the head. Your voice, Do we have any questions rolling in, or what's?
Yeah. Someone was asking earlier, a few people were asking earlier, how many drafts we did on our scripts that did good.
Right.
For internet, we were required to turn in 30 pages every time we cycled through everyone in the class, which might have been like 30 pages every 3 weeks or something like that.
Yep.
And every time I would get notes, just because I'm obsessive about it, I retype the script from beginning and then just keep going to the next 30. So I turn in 30, and then the next week, or for the next time, I've retyped those 30 and then type 30 more, because I just want to go through it obsessively, and that's not necessary at all.
Although it's probably pretty helpful.
It is. So if you count that, then I think I did 4 drafts of internet.
Yeah.
But
it's something. A benefit of you retyping your scripts is, I imagine you're skipping over the words that seem redundant.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. The best piece of writing advice I ever got was pretend you're being paid $100 for every word you cut. And if you do retype it all by hand, I imagine that you're just earning that unconsciously.
And I also love going through and retyping it to see if I can make it take up less space on the page.
Yes, thank you.
If there's like one scene description that's 3 lines and then like a 1 word hanging on to the next line, yes, it drives me nuts, and I do whatever I can to get that up.
Yeah, so keeping those descriptive passages, which I've talked about, and I'll talk about in writing the script, but we talked about that, like keeping those lean and mean. I mean, other than putting your WGA number on the cover page, long descriptive passages tell the reader, oh my God, rookie. So,
yeah.
Other questions? What do we got? Anything?
See anything good, Avi?
I saw somebody asked a while back, what's the magic number of scripts to have?
I would
to have in your hip pocket. You mean to have?
Yeah, like how many completed scripts is the magic number? I'm trying to find the.
Well, so I'll tell you what I heard. My manager didn't want me to go to LA until I had 2, 3.
Yeah.
And so I'd had 2 with him for a while, and then when I wrote the 3rd, I think it was the 3rd. It was either 3rd or 4th. When I wrote that one, he was finally like, okay, these people who have been saying that they're interested, it's worth you going to LA now and doing the meetings.
Abdullah, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is the one who said that. He just reposted it.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah. 4 scripts.
I'll tell you my experience.
Yeah, 3 or 4 scripts. I mean, by then you're starting to, get your legs and understand. And also you've created a voice. So Alexie's manager, knew that she had a very strong, very identifiable voice. You hit a rhythm, Yeah.
Something that's also worth pointing out, do have more than one, because if somebody reads your script and likes it, it's more likely that they'll say, we like it. What else do you have? Then we like it. We're gonna make it. And so do have something else that's finished. Do have other ideas of things that you're working on, or things that you're going to work on, but then tell them that you're working on it. The thing that I would caution against is don't go in saying, "Oh, I have 30 scripts," because
saying what?
Like don't go into a meeting and say, "Oh, I have 30 other scripts and they're all ready to go."
Shit, no,
because. And I feel I've met people like that. I'm sure you've met people like that, and it gives a sort of mental impression of, okay, so you have a lot of half-assed scripts, that you dashed out and then went on to the next. And quality is more important than quantity. So just make sure that what you have make sure that your primary thing that you have is absolutely ready to go out at the very least, because they're going to ask for more things and clean it up, but do have something that actually will catch people's attention, because if you have 30 half-assed scripts, none of those are going anywhere.
No, then you don't know what you're doing. But if you've got one or two really strong scripts, then exactly what Avishai is saying is, then they might say, hey, we're not going to buy these, but we know you can write. We want to be in business with you. Do you have another idea? And then they may want to hear your pitch. Alexis is asking 3 features or pilots. If you're doing TV, you could what? Yeah, you could have pilot. You could have 3 pilots.
But it should be like what you want to write.
Yeah.
So like if you're trying to get a feature, you don't necessarily want to go with a pilot. What is it? What's it called when you write someone else's TV show?
Oh, it's a spec TV
It is
pilot.
a spec, yeah.
Yeah.
It's awkward because in film, spec means it's your own original idea, and in TV it means you're doing an episode for somebody else's show that they didn't ask you to do.
Right.
A fun fact about I was just saying, a fun fact about that I've heard is that if you're going in trying to get a writing job in some writer's room for Modern Family, you do not send them a spec for Modern Family. Yeah. Because you send it for something that has like a similar sensibility but is made by someone else. That way, because they're going to know their characters better than anyone. So if you write something, they're going to be able to critique it really hard. They'll be like, no, he would never say that.
There's also a legality issue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, legality too? Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
But yeah,
but
make sure that, so if you're writing TV and you're writing pilots, by the way, Alexis, you've written 3 pilots, let's say, they should be in the same tone. So if you write if you've got a voice like Glover in Atlanta or voice, stay in that tone, because here's what happens when your script comes in to the showrunner. He or she looks at it and they're looking for your tone and sensibility. They're going to give you the story. Here's what's going to happen. If they say, wow, Alexis, I read your pilot and we love you as a writer. Here's the story. It's episode 8. And in this episode, this is what happens. Go write it. So they're seeing your tone, your sensibility, and you want to be consistent in that. You don't want to write one that's a thriller and one that's a rom-com, because then you're just confusing them. You can break out. I know it sounds like you and you are going into a niche. You are becoming. This is all I write, but you can break out later. You just don't want to confuse them early in your career. You want to,
We have so many great questions. So one that I see come up a couple times is here we go, Monica. What happens if you work in different genres as far as having several scripts? Should you stick with the same genre for these, basically for the 3 scripts that you have in your pocket before you go to Hollywood? Should they all be in the same genre?
Here's what happens. Let's say that you get your script, your best script. Let's say it's a rom-com. You get it to an agent, manager, or producer. They read it and they say, okay, I know you can write now. I know you can write. I can't sell this script, but I can sell you. And I can tell the studio that you wrote a great rom-com and they'll read it. But then if you go in and pitch them a mystery or a thriller or a horror movie, you've confused them. you know, if I sell you as a ballet dancer, don't come in tapping. You know, where'd that metaphor come from? I don't even know.
Oh man,
That was a like bad metaphor, but because you confuse them. And then once you get going, once your career starts, then you break out and do different stuff. But that first great script is a calling card. It's a calling card to show that you can put it on the page.
So I have a different answer.
Oh,
good.
So, like, obviously know who you're pitching to. Like, if you're going in on a horror pitch, don't talk about your romantic comedy as if they're going to buy it. I would argue it's okay to have multiple different genres with a caveat, because it's possible that, you know, your manager will be like, I don't know anybody looking for this genre, but you wrote something in this genre, and that person over there is looking for this. You know, like your adventure is not selling, but your intimate drama, I know someone who's looking for one of those. The thing that I would advise, because you are being sold as a writer who they're going to want to work with, is regardless of genre, make sure that your voice is you. That somebody who reads multiple scripts by you, regardless of their genre, knows, like, okay, this is an Alexie script, this is a John script, because like if you read Neil Gaiman, he dabbles in a bunch of different genres.
Yeah,
there's genres that he's known for, but he dabbles, but you always can tell that it's him.
That's what Nina brought up.
That's what I'd say. And okay, so Nina's asking about voice. Here's a definition of voice that I heard recently that has really stuck with me. I've heard two different versions. So one version is voice is the stuff you get wrong. It's the flaws that you consistently do. That's one version. And another version that I heard that really stuck with me was voice is what you start to do automatically. So if you write enough, and it's another reason to write a lot, you know, if you write enough, you start doing things kind of as easy as breathing. Like certain phrases will pop up, certain words will pop up, certain shapes on the page, the way that you're writing your action versus the way you're writing your slower scenes, the way you're writing your dialogue at this moment. It starts to resemble you because it's the stuff that you do when you're not overthinking it. And I think, young writers are thinking very hard about every individual word that they're writing. And is this the right word? When it gets easier and you start doing this automatically, that's your voice. And when people can tell that you have a strong voice, part of what they're seeing is that you have been at this, that you've been writing, and that you've developed something. So it's kind of that's how I define voice. It's sort of the unconscious thing that you do.
That's right.
Don't try to force a voice on the page. We can always kind of tell.
Yeah, sometimes people write jokes in, which, like, sometimes jokes are fun in the scene descriptions if they're not, like, if you're not writing to them. Like, sometimes people just have, like, smart scene descriptions where you're like, that's good.
Yeah,
but
and that's voice.
Yeah, but if you're writing to it, you're trying too hard.
I read a script.
But I think it does. It's organic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you write long enough, your the voice is so organic that it just comes out of you. And by the way, that's when you get into the zone a little bit, and you really, it starts to flow.
It's so scary to start writing because, for me at least, because once you start writing, suddenly you look up and several hours have passed.
That's a great thing, man. That's a great thing. But you're in the zone.
I completely zone out, and then I can't do anything else for the rest of the day because my brain's off.
Yeah,
it's just off doing its thing. I read a script that was by a new writer, and for the first few pages, it was really interesting. This writer was playing with format and certain things like moving the margins in a way that seemed very intentional. And for a few pages, like, okay, this is really interesting. You're doing something bold here. But after a certain point, it became a lot. And I started asking the question, why is this being done here? Why is this formatting being played with? And I couldn't find any reason other than this writer really wanted to impress upon me that they had a voice. It's like, look, I'm breaking the rules. I'm doing, and there are writers who play with that, and you read it and you're like, okay, this is right. Like, I understand why they took this extra line here. I understand why They like John. Do you remember? Okay, so I played with formatting once in the script I wrote for your class. I don't know if you remember, but I wrote a werewolf script for you. And,
yeah, I remember the werewolf script.
And it's all sort of leading towards the full moon. And then I have sort of the beginning of the third act is when everybody turns into werewolves. And so I have a page where it's like describing all the different
We're in
people.
Central Park, aren't we?
We're all around.
Yeah.
But so I had a page where it's like, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, dot, 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 dot. And then I had a page that was entirely blank, except for in the middle of the page, it just said changes. And I did that intentionally with the thought of like, oh, class is going to like this. And then when we just played it on the board, it just sort of scrolled by because it's just a scrolling. But the intention behind it was, oh, snap, everybody's turning now. This is like a bomb exploding. So like I had a point behind it, but every so often you'll read somebody who plays with formatting just to show that they could. And there's no purpose behind it.
Yeah. I think this is on that note. I think this is connected to that. If your descriptive passages and maybe even your formatting reflects the tone of the script, and you probably heard me say this before, but Walter Hill, the first Alien.
Yes.
Man, I mean, I remember reading that script right when it first came out, before the movie came out, reading that first Alien script. And it is moving so fast, and he's writing bullet points. And what you realize that he had done, he had captured the pace of the movie in the descriptive passages. And you're like, and you're going, I'm on board, man. This guy has taken me on a ride, and it is moving fast. Avi, have you read it? Sounds like you have.
I have, and it's a really good point that I think is worth talking about because I feel at least that a script should read in a way that sort of matches the pacing of what you'd be watching. So if you have a sequence where somebody gets hit by a bus, you don't write the 25-foot four-wheeled blue bus with the Maybelline ad on the side barrels down the street at 50 miles per hour and pancakes the man into a bloody ball. It's like, no, he's hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the reasons why I hate seeing the word suddenly in scripts, because you're slowing down your sentence by 3 syllables
by putting suddenly. Or one of my least favorites, one of my picadillos is nevertheless.
It takes up so much space.
It takes on, and by the way, nevertheless, I mean, so what you're saying is, I don't need to say this, but I'm going to take up. Yeah. Anyway, more questions.
I will say though, if you have something where the intention is to make it feel like it's coming to a crawl, maybe you do want a word like that. It depends on what it calls for, because you don't necessarily want it to be boom, 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 boom from start to finish. But you want it to feel like the speed that you'd be watching it. And hopefully you're writing something you don't want people to be bored by while watching. So you try to match that.
Nora Ephron, who was a great rom-com writer, obviously. Nora Ephron, her descriptive passages were actually charming.
Aww.
And you'd read them and you'd go, I'm charmed. Can I live in that living room?
Yeah.
And because that's what she did, she created those worlds.
Yeah.
More questions?
Yeah, there's so many good ones. So we started a conversation about agents and managers. And John, I'm forgetting the percent that they take. Is it 5 or 10? 5.
10.
10. It is 10. Okay.
Managers take 5, agents take 10.
Oh, is that right? I thought it was the same. I know that lawyers take 2.5.
Yeah, unless you beat them up a little bit. But yeah.
Abdullah, Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Schutz wrote the draft of Alien that sold. Walter Hill did rewrite it, but he did, as far as I remember, I could be slightly wrong, but he didn't just change the name, he did rewrite the whole thing, but he briefly took off their names from the script and they had to fight to get their names back on.
Wait, go back to the last one. What did Dan O'Brien, wrote Alien. I watched
Dan O'Bannon has a great book
that.
about writing, by the way.
Yeah, he does. I've got that book. Walter Hill came in and changed things like names. Oh, Walter Hill. I love Walter Hill. He's a great writer. He's a great. This sounds terrible. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I don't know if he's still alive.
He's still alive.
Is he? Oh
yeah.
God, he was in such bad shape. But Yeah, Dan O'Brien. I mean, that script. Yes, thank you. Yes, yeah. I shouldn't. I should have not. I should have mentioned the other writers. O'Brien, and what's the other writer's name?
Yeah, movie 4 years ago.
Ronald.
Yeah, it was Ron Chutzit and Dan O'Bannon.
Yeah, yeah.
So they wrote a script called Star Beast, which was gonna go to Roger Corman at one point. And when Fox bought it, Walter Hill rewrote it. He did do an actual serious rewrite, but
he's a great writer.
Structurally, it's the same. There was a moment where there was a credits question, and there was was Walter Hill going to be the only one credited, but everybody got credited in the end.
Everybody got credit.
Yeah.
So something that we said. So I'm trying to figure out where to go because all these questions are so good. But we did say that we would talk about our first paychecks as writers.
Who wants to go first?
You guys should go. Your stories are good.
John, I'm sure your story's great.
I know. If yours is the one that I think where you got the big deal out of the first time going, and then you had the shady friend, then is that the one?
Yeah,
did feel appreciated.
There are two little. There was a little one. That one is. Yeah. So should I tell that? Is that the one? No. Okay. Well. Okay.
Well, first, just do the first one because
Okay. So what happened was I was at American Film Institute. I was at AFI, and there was a guy who was a year ahead of me, and he comes to me one day and he said, "I got the rights to this book. For free, and will you do the adaptation? Will you write it?" And he said, "And by the way, I can't pay you." But nobody was paying me at that time. So I figured that's a good deal. He's offering me zero, and so is everybody else. So I said, yeah. And I read the book. And when I read the book, which was a political satire, when I read the book, speaking of voice, I was like, oh my God, this is right in my wheelhouse. I got it. And I broke it down, as you can imagine, structurally. I broke that thing down. I broke the book down. I went through it. I read it 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times, going through it and saying, this page is the incite incident. This page is the introduction of protagonist. Oh, this is the midpoint, but it happens on page 70. I've got to make it happen on page 50. I'm moving. I got it all laid out, man. I broke that book. And then I wrote the script. And at this point, I had a kind of a low-level agent who had read a really, really, really bad script of mine. And for some reason, she said she would represent me, but she wasn't doing much. And I'd written maybe 2 other scripts, thinking of, how many scripts you read. And there was a guy at CAA. I don't know if you guys know what CAA is. CAA is arguably the biggest agency in the world. And there was a guy at CAA who called me and said, hey, you're pretty good. And, stay in touch with me because we might want to represent you. But I was already represented by this woman. Her name is Catherine. And so anyway, I wrote the script, the adaptation. Am I making sense, or am I jumping around too much?
Makes sense.
You got it.
Okay, so I gave the adaptation to her, and she read it, and she said, it's pretty good. And I was a new writer, so I said, oh, pretty good is pretty good. Okay, I'll take that. And she said, but I've got bad news. I'm going to quit. I'm going to leave the agent business. I'm done being an agent, and I'm out of here. And she said, you want me to introduce you to another guy who's here? And I knew CAA was kind of sniffing around, and they were calling me. So I thought, no, I'm just going to hang out for a while. Maybe CAA will take me on. So anyway, cut to literally 2 weeks later, maybe a week later, phone rings, and it's Rob. Rob's the agent at CAA. And he says to me, did you write The Body Politic? And I said, yeah. I said, how do you know that? Because nobody's read it. Only that woman, Catherine Knowlton. And he said, no. Everybody's read that script. It's in a bidding war.
I do know the story.
And I said, no. I said, maybe not. He said, no. Your name's on the cover page. I just got out of a staff meeting, and somebody in there said, does anybody know who John Warren is? Because this guy's got a script that's going through the roof. Orion and Universal Pictures are both bidding on it. And I'm like, I don't know how they got it. He said, well, they got it. He said, do you have an agent? And I said, no, I don't have an agent. And he goes, you do now. You're with CAA. And he said, I'm closing this deal. He said, don't. And I swear to God, he said, don't leave your phone. And I think I sat there and stared at the phone like a moron, just standing going, will it ring? Will it ring? my fate is in that phone. Will it ring? And he called me back and he said, I'm close and this and that. And then by the afternoon, the next day, he calls me. He says, here's the number. I can close it. I can close it. Orion's ready to buy it out right now. And I said, shit, sell it. Don't get off the phone with me. Go call them and say, we'll take the money. And so he does. And I said, and then he calls me back. And by now he and I are in love with each other. And I said, by the way, how did they get the script? And he said, have you ever heard of a woman named Catherine Knowlton? And I said, yeah, I have. And he said, she's been shopping it around town. She attached herself as producer. He said, is she the producer? I said, no, she stole it. He said, what? I said, she stole it. She was my old agent and she left the agency business and she didn't tell me I said, she's been running around town with that script as if it's, she's attached as producer. He goes, yeah. He said, she sold it. She had been shopping it for a couple weeks. And he said, did she have your approval? I said, no, I've never told, no, she told me she thought it was pretty good. He said, no, it's better than pretty good. And, you're going to make a shitload of money. And this woman stole your script. So I'm like, wow, that is really, but on the other hand, I'm going, wow, I got all this money. So I'm not too unhappy, but I'm thinking she's got balls. And so true story. So now, and I got my first meeting and Mike Medavoy, who ran Orion, I go over and meet with him. And he said, we love the script. And he said, we're sending it out to Frank Oz to direct. And Frank Oz was a super hot director at the time and all this stuff. And then literally true story, like the next week or so, my phone rings and I go, hello. And he goes, hi, John. This is Catherine.
Love this part.
And I'm like, wow, man, you got a pair. You're calling me. And she says, so it's really great. I mean, it's slightly unusual the way this happened. I said, yeah, you stole my thing. I said, yeah, it was a little unusual. She said, but, I know you made money. I know it's all good. And listen, I'm wondering, would you consider paying me 5%? He said, wait a minute. So you stole my car and now you're asking me for gas money? Is that where we are? Okay. You crazy bitch. I said, no. I said, don't ever call me again. And then I did a terrible thing. Rob was this agent. Rob was a monster. He was about 5'5", and he was just a killer. And so Rob and I are talking next day. We're talking every day. We're so madly in love at this point. It's like a courtship. I'm selling script. And so I said, hey, that woman, call me. And he said, what? And I said, that Kathy. And he was this guy was a killer. It's like 5'5". It's just a monster. And I said, yeah, she called me and she wanted 5%. And he paused. It was his pause. And he said, I'll give her a ring. She won't ever call you again. And I really felt bad. Because I didn't wish her ill, and I wouldn't sick him on anybody. I wouldn't sick him on a rabid dog. I mean, and the fact that he was going to call her, and I just thought, oh God, don't eviscerate that poor woman, because she did a bad thing, but she didn't deserve to have Rob sicked on her, and she never called me again.
Okay, I have a question. Because we were talking before about the fear of scripts being stolen. So she stole your script. She kept your name on the title, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
She didn't say she was the writer. She stole my script because she said I'm the producer.
Right.
So when she took it to Orion and Universal, Warner Brothers, and Fox, she said, I'm producing this movie. And by the big thing was, we found out later, she wasn't trying to get money for me. She was saying, hey, I can get you a deal on this script. So she wasn't trying to get me a good deal. She was saying, don't worry about the writer. Yeah. So she stole it in as much as she said, I represent the material, which she didn't. We had no agreement. So she stole it. Avi, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's completely unethical.
It's completely unethical. And It's
fun.
it's the more likely version of somebody stealing your script.
Yeah, that's right.
Where it's like,
Mhm.
we love this script, it's great, we're going to steal it, but of course we're going to leave the writer's name on it.
Is it
I
a
don't know
bit?
what she was thinking. I mean, it's like, but that's pretty good. I mean, that's a real. That was my.
Like, we're not
that
crazy.
Was kind of, huh?
Like, we're not crazy. We're not going to try to like take
Yeah.
the name on it.
But that was kind of my introduction, to how I thought, man, this is the wild, wild west out here. This is like people doing this and Rob calling her and killing her, and it's just funny.
God. I don't know if any of us have a story like that for our first.
Yeah.
It was really
paycheck.
an anomaly. It was very. I was really, really lucky, and I will say quite candidly, and then I'll shut up. But I mean, and I'm being really, really, really candid here. Suddenly, my phone's. I mean, Rob's sending me to meetings everywhere, right? And I will tell you that in my heart of hearts, I thought I went up to the plate for my first at bat, and I hit it out of the park. And I bet I'm not that good. And I was terrified. I was terrified because I thought, I know I'm not that good. They don't know. They think I'm really good, and I'm really not. They think I'm here, and I'm really here.
Yeah,
and
I think that every time.
Imposter syndrome.
And and I started working my ass off because I thought I've got to catch up to myself.
You got to be as good as they think you are.
I've got to be as good as they think John Warren is, and I know. Don't tell anybody, but I know he's not that good.
I remember reading there was something about like Anthony Hopkins, like like somebody was talking to Anthony Hopkins saying like, how are you doing this weekend? And he says, well, I haven't been found out yet.
That's how you feel. That's how you feel.
And he's Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, you go. That's exactly you go. Oh God! Wait until they find out that I'm really.
There was a quote. It was Neil Gaiman saying he was talking.
Neil Gaiman's great, but
he's great. He was talking to another Neil at a function, and the other Neil was saying, everybody, has such specific ideas of who I am and what I've done, and I just don't feel like I could ever live up to that." And Neil Gaiman said, "Well, I mean, you were the first man on the moon." Anyway, so imposter syndrome happens to everybody.
yeah. Anyway,
man.
there's my. Do you got more questions? You guys want to share your stories? What do we want to do?
Yeah.
How
Well,
we doing
now we'll tell you
time-wise?
we're pushing it, but I think people are still hanging on. So if you all are good.
I'm free.
Okay.
I got a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, now me and Avi will tell you some more realistic expectations. Avi,
You want to go or should I?
You got it.
Okay, I'll go. So I feel like the real takeaway for the question of how do you break in is it just sort of happens differently to different people. Like, and no same path is trod twice. I feel like the way you get in, you sort of dynamite behind you. So here's my weird story. So I had written my script for John. It had sort of done its circles. It went to festivals. I was hip pocketed by a manager. Got me into a really cool meeting. R.I.P. Dark Universe, but it was really cool at the time. And I was a PA on a movie for a small production company that specialized in horror. And since I was just on set every day, I asked one of the producers if he would be willing to look at this werewolf script. And he said, sure. And he liked it. And so about like a year or so later, I think, they sent me some log lines. They said, here are some things that we're developing. Would you be interested in pitching on any of them? And there was one that excited me. And so I pitched it, but I did sort of my own version of it. And they rejected it for being too different from what they were. Because fair enough, I did change the log line, but I had used that as my sort of jumping off point. And so I felt, okay, they rejected it for being too different. But now I've fallen in love with this idea. And if it's too different, what's stopping me? So I wrote the two different versions. I leaned into what made it different. And when it was done, I took it to those same people. And they're like, this is great. We want to buy it. And John, you were there at the time.
I remember this. Yeah.
I was calling John like every other day. It's like, okay, they have a contract. What do I do? Is this okay? What do I say? And John was like coaching me through it. So
what did I say?
You were coaching me through it.
Oh, coaching through it. Oh, yeah. I remember this very well. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because I didn't know what was normal or what wasn't. Like there had been a time where a producer wanted to option my werewolf script, and there was a point in the negotiation where it fell apart because we suggested a shopping agreement, and this producer just dropped it like a hot potato. And by the way, to side note, I was talking with Alexie about this the other day. If you're a new screenwriter, especially if you're a young screenwriter, and you have a script that is going out in the world, there are people who are going to recognize that you're desperate. They and without any judgment, like screenwriters are like, we want to sell our stuff, and every so often, if you're lucky, every so often somebody's going to come over to you and say, we want to buy the script. And there's going to be this very strong subtext, sometimes even text of, listen, kid, you're new. Your career hasn't started yet. You need me. Just shut up and take what I'm offering. And a lot of writers will accept that. And you should know, don't. Because it's... and this isn't talking about the sale, by the way. This is entirely separate, but it's a good note to have when people are trying to negotiate with you, because you do have some power. They do need you because they like your script and they want to make your script. And there are some people who will come out saying, we want to buy this for sub WGA minimum or something like that. And if you say, well, is it possible that the sale could be... Did John just leave? John, you there?
Yeah, I just have to get up for a second. I'm just going to toss water.
Okay.
So anyway, point I was making, if you're in a situation where somebody's negotiating with you and they have that subtext, just be aware you do have power. Because they do want to work with you as a writer, and it's important to know. And by the way, the people who come over to you and say, we want to make your thing, and we love it, and we need you, as opposed to the other way around, that's worth everything.
Yes. Yeah, we were talking about, Avi and I signed in here to do a little check on the system, and we talked for 2 hours. So yeah, we got to hear that story. People are asking about like payments and like minimums and stuff like that. So a thing to think about with, John's back. Ayo. So something to think about with the guild is that if you sell a script to a company, to a production company or studio that's in the guild, but you're not, isn't it true that like you're immediately in the guild? Like you should get guild minimum if they are guild, and then you are in after that.
I think it's true. I'm not in the guild.
Yeah, I'm not either.
What? I missed part of that. What'd you say?
Well, Alexie was saying Alexie was asking, if you sell a script to a guild signatory company, does that get you in the guild? And I think it does, but I'm not in the guild, so I can't really say.
It's a point system, and I think selling a feature script is the full amount of points that you need to get in.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you sell, let's say you get hired to write an episode of something, and I don't write these down because this is not correct. It's hypothetical, but maybe you need 12 points to get into the guild, and a feature gets you all 12. But if you write an episode for TV, that might get you 3 points or 4 points, and you write another one. Now you're up to 8 points, and when you meet the point minimum, and I will say, just in a very practical way, when you can join the guild, join the guild. The Writers Guild is an amazing guild. The insurance and the pension benefits are out of this world. But it's a point, Alexie, yes, it's a point system. I don't know what the points are.
And kind of the point of minimums is writing is labor, and if they want to buy your script, they are paying for your labor, and there is a certain amount of money where below that number it is potentially exploitational, and people who recognize that you're looking to be exploited will want to exploit you. And it's just good to know your rights. Like, don't get greedy. Don't say like, well, I want $1 million in a jet plane or anything like that. Like, but be aware that you do have some negotiating power.
Yeah, I mean, the power of no is big.
Yeah.
And writers, I feel, don't use it enough. But to say no,
It's hard.
I mean, I wish I could take credit for it, but a couple times in my career when I said no, and I meant no, I wasn't playing, I wasn't being coy, and then they came back with better offers, and I was like, no, I wasn't negotiating, I meant no, and they were like, yeah, but I actually got a deal out on a movie like that. And my agent said, you've said no 3 times. Why don't you just take the money and shut up? And I went, yeah, let's take the money and shut up. No.
Yeah. Although, are either of you familiar? I told Alexie about this. There's a show on HBO now called I May Destroy You, which it's really, really, really good. And the lead actress is also the writer-creator. She had done another show for BBC, and she was pitching this new one around. And Netflix wanted to buy it, and they were going to pay her something like $1 million for it, but she wasn't going to get any of the rights. And like she wasn't going to keep any part of the IP. And she tried to negotiate, like, could I have 5% of the IP? Could I have 0.5% of the IP? And they kept responding with like, well, this is just it's highly unusual. And, and her agents were saying, just shut up and take the money. And she said no. And she actually turned them down and fired her agents because she is that show. And she, it's about her. It stars her as an admirer. Took it to BBC and HBO, and she controls it, and she has, obviously, like she'd had some success in the business before that, so she had power. But if she had said yes in that other meeting, then she wouldn't have had power because she would have been pressured by just shut up and take the money. And so if you're new and you don't have that sort of like clout, it happens to everybody. Just be aware you do have that power.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, writers, they're broad generalization, but writers tend to be a little bit victims and martyrs. And they go, oh, you'll give me $5. Okay, I'll take $5, and I'm so appreciative, and again, I don't want their variations on this theme all over the place. But again, the power that when you say, no, I'm worth more, they might think you're worth more. But sometimes you got to stand by that conviction, and they may walk away.
Yeah. It reminds me of not screenwriting. I did copywriting for a while, freelance, and in all those like circles, people are constantly saying, how much do I charge? How much do I charge? And the response that people get is, how much do you want to make? And so at that point in my little copywriting career, I was charging like $50 for something, and then I adopted a dog and needed $500 more to cover my rent because I bought a dog instead. And then I was like, oh my god, I don't have money. So the next person who came to me, they were like, how much is it? Normally it was $50, and I was like, it's $500. And then they said, okay. And then from then on, it was $500. And then one time I was like, I'm curious where this would end, like how much can I push it? Kept pushing it, and then now I don't have to. Now I'm not doing copywriting really anymore. But it's true. It's like you have to, when you say that you're more valuable than that. Yeah. It makes you more valuable than that too. Like, I mean, it's not easy, and they're not always going to get a good response, but
Right. If you say, please buy my script, I'll sell it for $5, they will see it as a $5 script.
Yes.
And you as a $5 writer. Brianna Vasquez says, and she is a Black screenwriter working in a predominantly white industry. And a Black woman screenwriter.
Yeah.
Anyway. I saw a question about agents.
Yeah, let's take one more question. We should go. And also, I've got a question. So all of our people here, I assume there's still some people hanging on.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Is there, Alexie, I hope I'm doing this right. Is there a podcast here with us?
Hey, there is.
I mean,
So
with this audience, would they like to?
I think, yeah, we are you asking them? Are you gonna get like, I feel like you're like the hype man? Yeah, but yeah, we're doing a podcast, people. We'll see how it goes. If you like it, then we'll keep doing it, and if not, then I don't know, maybe we'll keep doing it anyway. But
I'll listen.
but yeah, we figure that, you know, half the time that we're having a conversation with any writer like John or Avi or, you know, Adam and I are just chatting, we slip into stuff that might be interesting, like where we're just comparing experiences. Like Avi, you and I last night, if that was stuff we were willing to go public with, that would have been.
Now I'm so curious. I'm curious.
Not live YouTube, John.
What was that?
Oh,
Not on
man.
live YouTube.
Man, oh man.
So
yeah.
yeah, people think that might be interesting. I don't know. Will we get an audience?
I'm seeing some applause.
Yeah, I'm seeing people saying yeah.
Okay.
It would be, he's saying, is it a podcast of Copy Class or different? We're calling it Breaking Story, and that's just kind of a fun name. I imagine we're going to talk about different things. We were even, you know, thinking about, do we do pitches there? Do we talk about the industry more there? Honestly, if you all have an idea for what it should be, tell us, because we are super open to doing whatever is helpful.
Yep.
Whatever is interesting to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, go ahead.
And in 4 weeks, I get. What's our movie next week?
Avi, you want to kick it off?
We're going to talk about A Quiet Place.
Gonna be back.
We'll talk about A Quiet Place.
Quiet Place, and Avishai is coming back to
There's stuff to talk about.
tell us what it's about. Okay.
Yeah.
And Avi, Avi, do you want to talk about the fact that we're sending out 2 scripts? I do have. You wrote up something about why you want us to look at 2 different versions of the A Quiet Place script, but briefly, if you want to introduce the idea, you'll see more in the email. But if you want to explain a little bit.
So basically, the writers of A Quiet Place, it was not an assignment; it was a spec. Beck and Woods wrote a script, and it's they knew that because the premise involves a lot of silence, and then the page might look a little boring because it's just blocks of description. So they play with format in a way that I think is really bold, and they break all of the formatting rules, and it works, and it got the right attention, and it did get rewritten because John Krasinski came on board to direct and rewrite. So that's why there's 2 drafts. But that first draft is really interesting to look at because it's an example of breaking the rules to get a certain result that is necessary. You're telling a story. You need people to be invested, and if that requires going a little off the beaten path of what's normally done in screenwriting, if you can make it work, then it could be worthwhile. If you know the rules and you can break them, and if you have a reason for breaking them, then people will pay attention. So that's why I think it's worth looking at that draft.
Oh, and then people are bringing up the fact that John, I think I actually forgot to tell you that I did this, but since we didn't have a film this week, I suggested that everyone watch Unspooled. Are you familiar?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. What they think? I didn't know you did that. And did they like it? What did they think?
I think it's like one of those things that you love to hate.
Yeah.
You know, I just cringe the entire time. Every level of that is bad. It's like the doc itself, not great. The production, not great. The short, not great. And it's all just not great.
Oh, man, I haven't seen it in a long time. It's so shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I have a doc that I recommend. I just rewatched it last night. John, are you familiar with Overnight?
No.
Okay, so it's worth watching. It's in like SD, and you can watch it for free on Tubi. But it's from 2003. It's about the writer-director of Boondock Saints, where back in the 90s, Harvey Weinstein, the documentary really hits differently now, but Harvey Weinstein was looking for the next Tarantino, and there was this bartender who had written one script that was sort of tonally like that, and Miramax bought it for like $300,000, hired the writer to be the director, bought him the bar where he was the bartender, got his band that he was in to do the score. Like, it's everything that any new writer could want. And this guy is just a raging egomaniac, and the documentary is about how he just destroys the whole thing.
Wow.
Oh,
What's it called?
It's called Overnight. One word, Overnight. You can watch it for free on Tubi. There's no HD version because all the footage is just what his friend was recording on the side. But it's so worth watching of how not to behave when things are going well for you.
Mm.
That's great. I'll leave you. I'm gonna. You sounds like you guys are gonna hang out. I'll leave you on this note. This apropos of that. When I was at AFI, there was a guy also in my class, and he sold the first script of anybody in that class while we were still there, and his name, we'll call him Mike, and he sold it to Universal, and he got a deal, and they actually gave him an office at Universal, which was kind of unheard of. I mean, this guy was cooking. And so he went in for his, and the agent who represented him told me this story. And he went in for the first notes meeting. And they gave him the notes. You know, he's sitting there. They're giving him notes. Studio's giving him notes. Studio bought the script. Studio's giving him notes. And he goes, yeah, I'm not feeling it. And they're like, what? And he says, I'm not feeling it, man. These notes are not, the script works as is. It doesn't need a rewrite.
I remember a version of that you told me, John, about one of your students that I don't know if I can name, but that he'd written something that was getting sold to Netflix. Mm-hmm. And they proposed, are you allowed to?
That's the other side of the story.
Is it?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's a different. But no, this is not a student. This is a guy that, again,
okay.
Anyway, the end of it was, that story is that he said, I'm not doing the notes. And they said, wow, okay, cool, got it. By the time he got back to his office, his agent was on the phone and said, you've been fired and you can clean out your office. So
yeah.
And they went, yeah, the agent said, they own the script, man. They bought the script. They expect you to know how to play well with others. You told them, you've just, anyway, long story, but it's that same, it's Overnight. It's like, oh my, it's completely antithetical to what Avishai was saying earlier, working with people, saying, I know how to work with you. You're going to want me to be in the room, and that kind of thing is, yeah.
When you get a note and you don't vibe with that note, you know what you say? Thank you. Yeah. Say, thank you. I'm going to think about it.
I need to think about
that's
that.
interesting.
I really want to consider that. That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
But John, I was you told me about, I'm going to be very ambiguous until you say it's okay to reveal who, but there was a student that was actually in my advanced class.
Yeah.
Very tall, has curly hair.
Yeah.
And he sold a script to Netflix. He was selling a script to Netflix. It was like a political satire thriller about class president. And
yeah.
And remember, the note came back that they said,
oh yeah.
Can you tell
John,
that
was he in my class?
Is that the color of the protagonist?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, he did two things. Okay. So this is a script called Valedictorian. The writer did a great job, killed it. He was
in my class with you.
Yeah, and he
was in my class with you. Did he take it twice? Was he?
He was in my class every year. I mean, was he in? No, he took my class all 4 years, except for one he didn't. Anyway,
he did the feature class all 4 years.
No.
Maybe I'm lying. Maybe he wasn't in my feature.
I think he was in.
He was in my year. Anyway.
Cosmo.
Yeah, Cosmo.
He's very good.
So what Cosmo did was brilliant. He did two things, and I'm going to tell these two things. I hope that, they make sense. First is this. He wrote the script in class. And it was really good, and he did a rewrite over the summer, and I said, I'm going to call a manager or two. I'm going to call a couple, and I'm going to send it out, and let's see what we can do. Managers call me back, and this one manager calls and says, I'll sign this kid today. I'm done. I'm ready. I'm all in. He said, I got one question for you, John. This is actually this is relevant. Thank you, Alexie, for bringing it up. And he said, I got one question for you. And I said, what? And he said, is this kid going to tell me that he has to direct the film? So I said, don't move. I'll call you back in 5 minutes. I called the writer and I said, if a studio were to buy this, would you tell them that you have to direct it? And he said, no. He said, I want to direct sometime in my life, sometimes in my career, but this is my first script, and if I can sell it, I want to sell it. I called the manager back and I said, hey, he's not going to pull that. Manager says, tell him to call me. I'm in and I'm ready to represent him. Big manager. So they did that. But what was brilliant, what the manager was saying to me, in case I'm being a little vague, what the manager was saying was, I can sell the script.
Will he let me?
I don't know. I cannot sell him as a director. He's never directed. And if you give me that monkey to put on my back that I got to sell, then I can't do it. And by the way, then you're telling me that he's going to be a nightmare. But if you're telling me that he's reasonable and he knows it's his first script, and if I can sell it, we're all happy. And then I'm in business. So the young man was smart enough to know. Then what Alexie's referring to, which was a little bold, but the story is based. The story is kind of loosely formed on a Trumpian-like character.
Such a good script.
And Netflix came back and they said, and this is, by the way, and important point, he had already been in meetings with them, a lot of meetings with them. They knew he was a very reasonable guy, a very smart guy, a very talented guy. And they said, we would like to change the protagonist and have him African-American. And he said, you know what? I wrote this script inspired by my feelings towards this guy who's in the White House. And I want a white blonde boy. And we can't change it. And they respected him. But again, I want to make the point, he was in the room. They knew he was reasonable. He had a strong, firm idea behind his no. He said, this is the reason, this is why I wrote it. And they went, you know what? You're right. So and he's got a rocking career now. So yeah, Alexie, that was that situation. And he's a very smart guy. And he handles his career very wisely. I talk to him all the time. And so
yeah,
anyway,
that script was like white privilege played into that a lot. It would be weird to see it switched. Maybe somebody could do it, but
it was a white privileged kid, and that was a fun script to like the two of you. That was a script that we were reading at class. As Alexie was saying, we read 30 pages at a time, and you bring in 30 pages, then you bring pages 30 through 60, and then 60 through 90. And again, it's true with your scripts. People were like, are we reading them today? Because, man, we knew we were, Avi, right? I mean, we knew that script was cooking, right?
It was fun. It was fun. It was fun to be there in class and have these table reads.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that. I mean, that for me to this day, that's still a blast. Is watching you guys create as we're moving.
Cool.
By the way, it's almost 6 o'clock. Huh?
Did we want to answer the question about agents?
Oh,
yeah.
well, John. That? Oh, what's the question?
Somebody a while back was asking, "Do you need an agent to get read, to get sold?"
No, you don't need an agent. At some point, you need and want an agent. But you both have worked with managers, I think. Yeah. I'm going to let you guys take it from here. I'm going to jump. Thank you, everybody. And Alexie, thank you. Avi, thank you for being a guest, and you're a guest next week.
Yeah, this has been fun. I'm excited to return and talk about horror.
To A Quiet Place, and great. Thanks, everybody.
John, have you seen A Quiet Place yet?
I haven't.
This is going to be exciting.
I can't wait. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
So.
Then
there were two.
Did we? So
the agent question is that I don't even think agents will sign you until you're actively selling something most of the time.
Yeah, like my answer to that question is no asterisk, because you don't need an agent. Sometimes there will be people in certain positions, like development executives at companies and whatnot, who aren't allowed to read things that are sent in except through a representative. Which it's interesting. I was given advice once: how do you get an agent? The answer is already have a deal going.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to an agent and you say, "I'm selling something," they have a deal for me. I need someone to help me negotiate it. That's when they come in and become your agent. So it's a fun little chicken and egg thing. But short answer is no, you don't need an agent, because ultimately they just want to read a good script and make it.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if people want to keep ask questions now that John isn't here, but
yeah, I feel like this is probably winding down. Does anybody have any last second questions?
let's see. Well,
can you cold email managers, or is that not a good idea?
John's talked about it before. You want to be really careful. You don't want to be pushy. If you do cold email them, it needs to be incredibly short. I've seen these things online where people like send them an entire pitch in the body of the email. And I wouldn't recommend doing that. John's advice, I think, is like, hey, this is my log line. I'd love to share it with you.
Yeah.
Is that what you think, Avi?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, if you query 100 managers, you'd be lucky to kind of get one yes, depending on what your situation is or what your references are. But yeah, you don't pitch the whole thing. You say, I have the script. It's in this genre. Here's the log line. Let me know if you'd like to read it. Thanks. And then never assume you hear it back. But, you know, back in 2016, when I was at my first film festival with the script I'd written for John, I was at a screening of a movie that played there, and all the actors were there. And that was the last screening of the night. We were all walking back sort of in a large group to our various homes. And one of the actors said, I have an audition tomorrow. And I said, oh, break a leg. And she said, you know, I don't expect anything to come of it. And like, I feel like that applies to screenwriting also. It's like,
oh yeah,
you know, query, put stuff out in the world. Maybe people are excited. Great. Keep the motion going. Don't assume it's going to turn into something, because most of the time it won't. And then when it does, it'll be a pleasant surprise.
So real quick, that reminds me, Bryce Dallas Howard was the speaker at the end of my NYU time at the Tisch graduation. And she said something like that actors expect to go to like 67 or 76 auditions before they land one. And that's working actors, is what she said. I've not been able to find that statistic. That's what she told me. I trust Bryce. And I try to keep that in mind. It's like, have I tried 76 times yet? And if, you know, or 67 times, have I heard no 67 times yet?
And it's part of the reason why to have so many scripts, like in addition to wanting to improve your craft, it's a game of odds. You know, if you have enough stuff going out into the world that's of quality, it's more likely you'll get a yes than if you have one or two. Just mathematically, because it's such a no laden business.
Yes. Yeah, you gotta love no. And also
Yeah.
But
just, you know, develop the thick skin, or at least, you know, develop the abs so that when you get punched in the stomach, you can block it. But
Alexie, if you were sending your internet script to someone, would you use the fancy cover or go plain? Adam and I were talking about this the other day. Sometimes people try to send cover letters with their... Wait, was it me and you, Avi? They were talking about fancy covers on scripts?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Then it was me and Adam.
I do have thoughts on it.
You do? I wonder if we think different. I submit... no, don't submit your scripts to the blacklist. The blacklist finds you if it's like the legitimate way, right?
Well, there's two different blacklists.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same umbrella kind of behind it, but there's the annual blacklist, which is the one that finds you, where people vote on people who are voters, vote on what scripts they love, and that ends up on the list. There's also a website where you can submit your script and pay for an evaluation.
Is that worth it? People keep asking, is that worth it?
It's been a mixed bag for me. It's really okay. Here's the complicated answer. when I first tried the blacklist with the script I wrote for John, and the first review I got out of the gate was an 8 out of 10, which 8 out of 10 or higher is what they require to kind of circulate it internally among their like industry members. So that's like, it's good to get. I have not had that success since. The script that I sold got like a 5 out of 10 on it. The script that won multiple awards, I tried it and I got like a 4 out of 10. So it's really hit or miss. The answer is, if you feel like you can afford it money-wise, because it is expensive, then I don't see why not. But the odds are not in your favor, and it's hit or miss.
Let's see. Back to the fancy covers thing. I personally do with my internet one that I just sent out. It doesn't have an actual like cover. It just has like the title written in a different font that I made on like Canva and dropped it in. And it's nothing nuts. It's just like the name. And I do because I write like animated stuff, and I'm not going to write on the front, this is an animation. But if I use an animated-y font, then people are more likely to pick up the genre. And that's what I've decided to do. I made one script where I had a cover page and people liked it. Don't put it on there if it's not good. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But Avi, you disagree, don't you?
No, I agree. The script that I sold has a picture on it. My sister drew a doodle for me, and it's on the cover, and that's the one I sold. I'd been told my whole life, don't mess with anything on the cover. It can backfire against you if the script's not good. I will say that, because then they look at it, they look at the script that's on their table and they say, "Oh boy, there's an ego behind it. They're being flashy with their font," and then they read it and they're like, "Yeah, no, they're trying to dazzle me, but the script doesn't actually work."
Don't change the actual script. Only the cover page. Like, don't like try to get fancy and put it in not Courier font.
Yes.
Only the cover.
Yeah. Even with the Quiet Place script that changes the format, the stuff that's within format is very clearly within format. It has to be recognizably a screenplay.
Yes. Cool. So I think we got it.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for sticking around.
Just not the same without John.
I know. I feel empty inside, but
I'm just gonna be his replacement from now on. Hello, everybody. I'm the new host of the.
You got to pull your hair back, so you got to be. There you go.
Great.
Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.